Hi, this is Chris Wilson of Wilson Motor Company. It's the final days of our 80th anniversary sales event. We have reduced prices on over 300 Ford, Lincoln, Nissan, and pre-owned vehicles, including over 50 F-150s in stock and coming. We have rebates as high as $3,000 and interest rates as low as 0% for 60 months. Check out our inventory online before July 31st at wilsonmotor.com.
Wilson Motor Company, we make car buying easy.
I was 9 when I lost my leg to cancer, but thanks to my children's hospital, I beat the odds. Today I'm a Paralympian and play on the U.S. amputee soccer team. Put your money where the miracles are. Give to your Children's Miracle Network Hospital.
Over 50? You can still register as an organ and tissue donor.
Call 1-866-99-DONATE. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
It's time for the Garden Guide with your host, Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden.
New research suggests that people are more likely to eat vegetables if they have a tempting name.
What would life be without homegrown tomatoes? Only two things that money can't buy, and that's true love and homegrown tomatoes.
From gardening to landscaping.
Today we are going to try and create garden eyebrows. Kind of like the flowers are sprouting directly from your hair. That makes sense.
Go! Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
And we welcome you to the show on a beautiful Saturday morning as we're heading towards, temperatures close to 100. But, we say but, there is a break coming in the forecast, and we are all looking forward to change.
I'm seeing 80s next week.
That's right.
80s next week.
Looking forward to a little cooler weather and possibility we could see some moisture too, Mark, which would be great.
I'm seeing a high of 75 on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And rain.
Looking forward to that.
That doesn't sound bad for the first part of August.
No, we'll take it.
That's not too shabby.
Take it, especially after all of the heat that we've suffered through over the last couple of weeks. We welcome everyone to the Garden Guide on this Saturday morning. We'll feel right along with Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden. And we were talking just a few moments ago before the show started, and I think between the heat and the grasshoppers, this summer will go down as the summer of grasshoppers and heat.
Yeah. Well, it was hotter last year. It was a lot hotter last year.
Yeah,
like we had 2 weeks of 100, in July. So it's all perception.
I guess, it's just because we're dealing with it right now.
It has been hot. Yes, I agree. It has been hot. But
the grasshoppers were not as bad last year as this year.
No, grasshoppers are out of control. So I would say 7 to 8 people out of 10 that are coming in the store right now have grasshopper issues. So if you're one of those people, don't feel bad. Everybody else is dealing with it.
And we will be talking about that this morning because
same thing,
it is an issue. But, with these warm temperatures, it has just boosted the soil temperature. And so your plants are they're
going crazy.
Off.
They're going crazy. The one thing I have noticed, though, since it was a really wet spring and then we had a cool and wet June, now that the heat has kicked in, almost all my tomatoes have blossom end rot.
Oh,
so right on the bottom. So it's like I went out last night. I'm like, they're really starting to ripen up. We've had a few here and there, but it's like, man, they're starting to ripen up, and every one of them's got blossom end rot. And I used a different fertilizer this year that doesn't have the high calcium in it, and it has made a difference. So I've got a couple different liquid applications that you can make if you're having the same problem with blossom end rot. We can talk about it a little bit more in the show. Got some sprays you can put on there to correct it. So I'm spraying tonight. Spraying tonight. But a lot of things happen in Anderson Seed and Garden. So we got that shipment of fruit trees in. We've got them all organized finally. It took a while to organize 400 fruit trees, but they look beautiful. So they're in 7-gallon containers. They run $89.99. They are 6 to 7 feet tall. So they're like big, and they're fully leafed out, well branched. Some of them have branches that are 2 or 3 feet long on them, and some of them even have fruit on them. So like lots of fruit on those trees. So there's peaches. There's probably about 8 different kinds of peaches that came in. I've got apricots and nectarines and some pluots, so the plum apricot combinations. But then we've got regular plums and apples and pears as well too. Okay. So we got a great selection of fruit trees that came in, and they look amazing for this time of year. So if you're looking for some more fruit trees, we've got them in at Anderson Seed and Garden, and they are gorgeous. They're all out in the back parking lot, so we just don't have room for all of them.
All of them inside the fence.
Yeah, so they're out in the parking lot, and they look amazing. But the other thing you need to be aware of is we've started our cash clearance sale. So a lot of our trees, well, actually almost all of our trees, fruit trees, shade trees, flowering trees, our evergreens, our shrubs, our flowering shrubs, and our vines, they're all 15% off right now. So you can get a good discount on those for right now. But if you pay with cash, you get an extra 10. And so you get an extra 10% off. So right now, if you pay with cash, 25% off. Otherwise, if you're a debit card or a credit card or a check, you're 15% off, and that includes the new fruit trees as well too. So we've got some really great prices. We've got some sales starting, and some really good looking trees and shrubs. I mean, the nursery looks awesome right now. Looks really good, especially after all this heat. But we do have all the shade cloth up. It makes a huge difference during the summertime. Yeah, we replaced the shade cloth last year, and so it really keeps the plants looking nice, and it's cooler. We've got misters going, so it's really comfortable to be out there, run around in the trees and shrubs looking at things.
When temperatures are in the high 90s.
Yeah, it looks really, really nice. And, of course, we are staying well-stocked with various pesticides for grasshoppers and squash bugs and mosquitoes are really kind of going crazy. And I've got a whole good selection of repellents as well, too. Okay. So I've got some repellents that are awesome. So it is bug season, and grasshoppers are king.
Yeah. Oh, they are
king. They are king this year. So, yeah, no.
And we're opening up the phone lines to take your calls. If you have something you want to talk about, including grasshoppers and fruit trees and everything else, 753-5868, 1-800-369-5868. And, I noticed in our yard, I'm now on my second treatment of pesticide.
Yes.
I think it was probably about late May, early June, and then went out 3 nights ago, and I'm like, we got to do it again.
Yeah. So I sprayed around the 23rd of June. And I sprayed with 7. And so if you've got edibles, there's some really good options for grasshoppers. So 7 is one of those. Sayonara is another, one of the new generation insecticides. And they're both labeled for fruits and vegetables. And so is the high-yield indoor-outdoor. So high-yield indoor-outdoor is a version of permethrin that's great for mosquitoes, but it's also really, really good for grasshoppers. Those are all labeled for fruits and vegetables, so those are safe to use in your vegetable garden, but they have a little bit shorter residual. You're really going to get 10 days to 2 weeks out of those, which is still great. But after I sprayed on the 23rd of June, I put my repellent down, so I put the Mosquito Go out, which is also safe to use in the vegetables, and I didn't really have any problems until this week. So this week it lasted about 4 weeks with the combination of the insecticide and the repellent. Yeah, but then they were starting to get out of control for the 24th of July. And so this week I did the same thing again. So sprayed repellent out, and instead of having thousands of them as I would walk through the garden, now there's just a small handful. I see a few popping around here and there. And I did my garden. I did all the way around the garden, and then I did my property, the border between my garden and my neighbor's field. And that seems to be where they're mostly coming from, is from the neighbor's field. And so I went really heavy along the border and into the property to try and get them before they get to our place. But some of the grasshoppers are getting bigger. They fly now, so they're flying all over the place. So those are great options for edibles. If you want something that's going to last a little bit longer and maybe give you a little quicker knockdown, the Bug Blaster from High Yield is my go-to for ornamentals, safe for turf, so lawns and flowers and shrubs and trees. And the 7 and the Sayonara and the indoor-outdoor, they're good for ornamentals as well too, not just strictly vegetables. So you have a wide variety of options. There's really, unless you go with the repellent, there's really no organic option that's going to give you really great control. Had a couple people in yesterday. They'd sprayed spinosad and it wasn't killing them. It's like, it's because spinosad doesn't work on grasshoppers. It just won't work on the grasshoppers. And like triple action, a fruit tree spray from Fertilome. As long as you spray it on them, it'll work.
Yeah,
but
you actually have to make contact.
You just don't
them.
get really good residual with it that way. So the repellent is made from like essential oils, and so you've got cedar oil, and some of the other repellents we've used have cinnamon and clove and geranium oil and citronella in there, and they're very effective at repelling insects, but it's not going to kill them. It's just going to make them leave and go somewhere else. And so they are very, very effective. I've had amazing results this year with some of my repellents, but it's not going to kill them, and so they're going to go out and lay eggs. And we just have not had any luck getting any Nolo bait this year. But I do have a new bait coming next week. And so this new bait is called Niban, and the Niban is effective on grasshoppers, and the bait is very attractive to them as well too. So if you did want to try and use some baits, the Niban's very, very, very effective, and it's used by a lot of professional exterminators, and it's not terribly expensive, and it's very effective on your targeted insects. You're going to eat that bait, and the grasshoppers are going to be one of them. So we're looking forward to having some of the Niban in next week. So.
Now, speaking of terminators, I know with you paired up with your sister company, Logan Extermination, that's got to be one of the questions that your crews are getting asked all the time is can you guys come out and spray the grasshoppers? I want to see death and destruction.
Usually throughout the summertime, we have 2 people just focused strictly on insects. And this year we have 4.
They're the grasshopper
They're the
slayers.
grasshopper people, yeah. So we've got extra crew of insecticide applicators. So if you are just to the point where you just need some help, we can take care of that as well too. So Logan Extermination, they do all types of pest control. So whether it's insects or whether it's rodents or mosquitoes, we can control a wide variety of different insects inside as well as out. And of course, lawns, trees, shrubs, landscape, anything you have problems with in your landscape, whether it's iron or whether you've got a disease in your pear tree. Like if you've got fire blight, we can help with fire blight and a lot of different things. So yes, we've got a great crew of techs this year that really know their stuff and are doing a great job.
If you get to that point where you're just throwing your hands in the air and saying, I give up.
Yeah, I need help.
There is help.
Yeah, I need help.
Yeah.
We've been doing a lot of mosquitoes.
Oh, I'm sure.
We've been doing an insane amount of grasshoppers, but wasps are starting to show up now too. They're a little bit late, but wasps and hornets are starting to show up now too. So I would suspect that the population might be heavy this fall on those as well too.
When it comes up.
Yeah, it just seems to be the insect populations have just exploded this year. So.
Well, there's a few other things we're going to talk about, but let's go out to the phone lines and welcome our first caller to the show this morning. Catherine is on the line from Dayton. Catherine, go ahead. Welcome to the Garden Guide.
Thank you very much. I have written to your email person about and sent a picture of my rose bush. He said that, I probably have rose slugs and root weevils.
Yes.
And I don't live very close to Logan, but I'm going to be going there Wednesday. But I have something called systemic insect spray, and I was wondering if that would work on that.
It would definitely work on the rose slugs, and I actually remember seeing your photos. David shared them with me, and I was like, yes, she's got rose slugs. That's where the leaves look like they've had the green sucked out of them in spots, and it's kind of like lacy. The rose slugs, they are not actually slugs. They're more of an insect, but they will pull all the chlorophyll out of the leaves and just leave these kind of translucent patches on the leaves. And then the root weevils will clip the edges out of the leaves, so it looks like someone has taken a pinking shear around that. And so I've got some roses and some peonies at my house that have it as well too. And so the systemic insect spray would be excellent for the rose slugs. It works on thrips, it works on aphids, it works on a lot of insects that really love to get into the roses, and should be very effective. to get the root weevils, you need to apply it to the soil as well too. And so in the evening, as the sun's gone down, but it's still light outside, let's say 8 o'clock-ish right now, it seems like is a great 8 to 8:30 is kind of a perfect time to do that because it's still light enough to do work outside, but the sun's kind of gone down. That's when you want to apply it, and that's when you can spray the plants with it, but then mix up enough that you have enough volume to saturate the soil around the plant. So we're going to water the roses with it, and it's going to get down into the soil. And those root weevils hide in the soil during the day, and then they come up at night and they clip the edges out of the leaves. And the adults are doing mostly cosmetic damage. They're not really hurting the plant that much, but their larvae are nibbling on the roots. And so it can eventually cause enough problems with your roses that they will really start to decline. And so it's a good idea to get the root weevils under control, even though the visible damage that they're doing is really only cosmetic. It's not structural. It's not going to do any long-term harm to them, but the larvae are nibbling on the root system. That can be a big problem. So,
how far around the rose bush should I drench?
18 inches from the from the stem. Just saturate, 12 to 18 inches. Just saturate that, and that will be very effective, especially with the spray on the leaves as well too. So,
okay,
all right.
I will do that tonight. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for sending the photos in. That makes it so much easier to diagnose stuff sometimes. There's nothing better than a sample for me. It's like if I can see it, touch it, feel it, I can. It's so much easier to diagnose. But the pictures are really helpful if you're in Dayton and a long ways away. So, thanks.
Okay, thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for calling this morning, Catherine. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right.
Phone lines open, 753-5868, 1-800-369-5868.
I mentioned the blossom end rot at the first of the show. So normally I use a fertilizer that has been put together by Fertilome, and it's a Natural Guard tomato and vegetable food. They had to discontinue that because of some various label regulations and some problems with manufacturing with the company they get that from. But the last couple of years I've used one from Job's, which is the same product, and it's got a really high dose of calcium in it. But it seems the last couple of years it's kind of made my potatoes taste a little metallic. And so I decided to go to a different fertilizer this year. So I used the 365 from As Green as It Gets, which has been an amazing fertilizer. It doesn't have the calcium in it that the other one does. And so my tomatoes, but we've also had perfect weather conditions for it as well too. So what I'm going to do is, since it's going to take too long to put that calcium supplement in the soil, I'm going to spray them. And there's a couple different options that we've got. So we've got Yield Booster from Fertilome, which comes in a concentrate or ready to use, and it's calcium chloride. And so the calcium is absorbed very quickly by the plant. It runs through the plant really quickly, and it will correct your blossom end rot very quickly. And then I also have from Fox Farm, I've got the CalMag, which is calcium and magnesium, and they're both safe to put on the plants. And the ones that are susceptible to blossom end rot are zucchinis, like squashes are very susceptible to blossom end rot, but then tomatoes and peppers. And you'll get that brown kind of sunken soft spot on the bottom of the fruit, right where the blossom was formed, and it's always on the bottom of the fruit, and it'll affect tomatoes for sure. So probably I'll spray tonight, and I'll spray next week, and that should completely completely clear it up. And the calcium is there in the soil, but it doesn't move very fast through the plant, so it's really slow. And so you got to use a form of calcium that will move quickly through the plant and get all the way out to the end of the blossom, which is the furthest distance that it has to go from the root system all the way through the plant. Yeah, all the way out to the end of the fruit. And the liquid does a really great job. So Yield Booster from Fertilome, CalMag from Fox Farm.
Okay.
Yeah. And we got another caller.
All right. Yes. Todd joining us on the line from Logan. Todd, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. And yes, I think I could use some help this morning. So, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we
sure can.
Okay. Hey, I have a sister-in-law up in Meridian, Idaho, that emailed me a question to ask you, Mark.
Okay.
They have a ever-bearing raspberry bush that is not blossoming. And they were wondering what they've done wrong or what they can do to get that to blossom.
Not necessarily anything wrong, and the everbearing have been a little slower this year because a lot of people have had to trim so much dead off. And so when you have to trim them more aggressively in the spring and you end up taking some of those older canes out, then they are less likely to produce blossoms until the fall. And so they should get a really, really great crop this fall. But winter was rough on the raspberries, especially the everbearing, and so they had to be trimmed a little bit more aggressively. And some people just like to trim them that way anyway, so that they do get a really heavy fall crop. So some of my gardeners and growers that we work with, they will just cut the everbearing down to the ground in the spring just to kind of clean them all up, and then they don't get a summer crop, but they get a really, really heavy fall crop out of them. So what I would recommend is that they fertilize them right now. So higher nitrogen fertilizers with some sulfur and some iron in there. So ammonium sulfate would be excellent because it's got the nitrogen and the sulfur in there. It'll encourage a lot of new growth. And that's where the raspberry production is going to be. And then the iron never hurts on the raspberries, especially on a season like this where we're seeing a lot of chlorosis in the plants. So they're very iron deficient. So a nitrogen, sulfur, iron combination would be super for right now. And then they should get a really great crop end of August through September.
Okay, so the ammonium sulfate and
iron. So like the EDDHA, Iron Plus has the nitrogen and the sulfur and the iron in there, and so that would be excellent. Yes. So Iron Plus from High Yield, ammonium sulfate would be superb, and then any other form of iron that's going to be readily available to the plants.
Okay, and you said the
EDDHA. Yeah, the EDDHA is the best.
Not ADD, but the other one.
Not the ADD iron.
Okay. And this is the next question. I'll make it short. This is for my wife. With our flower, from our front yard project that Will hasn't come and saw yet.
No, ran by it just the other day. Yeah, it's coming along.
Anyway, yeah, it is. Now we have all those plants. We got more coming. What do we do to make all those survive? Even your plant that you gave us.
I know. You got to make sure that plant stays alive forever, Todd.
I know.
Forever.
Anyway, what would you do?
I have planted a bunch of new things this year myself as well. And I always dig my holes 2 to 3 times wider than the pot. Yep. And I condition that soil with a really nice soil conditioner or potting soil, or there's a lot of different options. A raised bed mix would be great. Mix that in with the soil that you're putting back in the hole. So soil that I take out, I'll throw it in a wheelbarrow. I'll add this nice soil amendment to it, work that into it, usually 30 to 40% to lighten that soil up, and then I'll backfill with that. And then I water with the Kangaroots or the root stimulator from Fertilome the first 3 or 4 waterings. To try and get those established and going. And it's not a bad time to plant right now. It's a little bit hot, but the way I look at it, the plants are doing great in pots on concrete, or are they going to do better, in the soil in your yard? So they should do just fine. They can handle the heat. You just got to make sure that the soil stays moist but not soggy. So I do not water every day. I water thoroughly when I first plant them, and then I'll go back after the soil's pretty saturated and hit them again so that it really hydrates the soil up well. But then I will wait 2 or 3 days after that initial watering, and then I'll go and I'll dig down 2 or 3 inches. And if the soil is still moist down 2 or 3 inches, I will let it go another day or 2. And then I'll go back and I'll check another spot where I dug the hole and see if it's still moist down 3 inches. And if it's still moist down 3 inches, I'll let it go another day or 2. And then when it finally dries out down 3 inches, then I will water it. Because if the soil is moist, down an inch or 2, it's much more moist down lower where you dug the hole. And so it can dry out on the surface in just, a few hours. But the soil is going to retain that moisture down deeper, especially where we condition the soil. Don't overwater. That's really critical, is to not overwater. But other than that's my planting process, Todd.
Well, I do appreciate that, Mark, and we appreciate the plant. We look at that, and
Awesome.
We're going, oh, he was so sweet to me in the past.
Now you just have to keep it alive. That's the thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing. And
I'll be
I don't know what it is with Lynette with her plants, but she's getting more, and
that's
we'll be in
good.
to get
That's
some
good.
more from
That's
you,
good.
Mark.
The more plants we plant, the cooler our environment's going to be. So, the more trees and the more shrubs we plant, it really does have a huge cooling effect on our environment. So, it is good.
Final question, real quick. Sorry, guys. With that flower bed and stuff in the front, Lynette wants to put like a light little mulch in there.
Yeah.
We were thinking about soil pep. Is that a bad idea, or
the soil
would you put something else in there?
The soil pep would be great. The soil building conditioner, which you're familiar with, would also be excellent. And then I do have some mini bark that is a little chunkier, but it's not as big as like a big bark. And those types of mulches, if you apply them in 1 to 2 inches of depth, will really, really help the soil retain the moisture longer, and it reflects a lot of the heat off. And so decorative mulches are very effective in keeping weeds down, but also in retaining the moisture so you don't have to water as much. And so the last couple of weeks I've had a lot of people coming in. They've got weed barrier down, they've got decorative mulches, and they're watering like every other day. And their plants are struggling because they're getting just like saturated and they're wet all the time. Yeah, and so the mulch will really, really help, so you can cut your water back by 25.
Yeah, that's what we
25 or
30%. So
yeah,
that's what we want to do with it.
It will make a huge difference, Todd. So I say go for it.
Well, okay, I do appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great weekend, Todd.
You too, guys. We'll see you later.
Bye.
That puts us here at the bottom of the hour. Wow. Half the show already flown by. We can take more calls, 753-5868, 1-800-369-5868. We were talking to Todd and Catherine, too. Coming up in the second half of the show, we ought to talk about just overall your suggestions for planting. Because with all of those fruit trees that have come in stock, there is a secret recipe for planting fruit trees, and it's a guarantee. It's Mark's guarantee. You follow these steps, and you will have success. So we'll get to that coming up in just a minute. You're listening to the Garden Guide here on KVNU.
I'm Bill Walter, KVNU News. A 19-year-old Logan man has admitted to filming himself having sex with a teenage girl. Trekken Sombrano accepted a plea deal that will likely send him to prison. Sombrano appeared Wednesday morning for a change of plea hearing in First District Court in Logan. He pleaded guilty to 1 count of aggravated sexual exploitation of a minor, a first-degree felony. The charge carries a punishment of 5 years to life in prison. Defense attorney Dallin Littlefield said in exchange for Sombrano's plea, prosecutors will ask the court for a sentence of 6 years to life and dismiss 3 remaining charges. Cache County Deputy Attorney Zachariah Becerra explained how in January Sombrano filmed himself having sex with the 13-year-old girl. He then showed the video to his girlfriend, who called law enforcement. The 9 remaining Pac-12 schools have been mostly quiet since Colorado announced it would leave the conference in 2024 and rejoin the Big 12. The Buffaloes joined Big Ten-bound USC and UCLA in an exodus that could continue in coming weeks and months. The Pac-12 issued a statement pledging to soldier on and pursue new members once its media rights deal ends at the end of the 23-24 academic year. Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah are believed to be potential targets for further Big 12 expansion, though those schools publicly committed to the Pac-12 prior to Colorado's announced departure. Hot temperatures during the day, clear at night, lows upper 50s, high temperatures over the weekend, back up into the upper 90s. You can always get more news at CacheValleyDaily.com.
From ABC Sports, I'm Mark Remillard. The league-leading Braves opening their weekend series against the Brewers in the 7th inning following an Austin Riley homer. Matt Olson also sent a ball into the stands.
1-2, and Olson drives one out towards the gap in right center field, and just over the wall.
The call on 680 The Fan. Braves chop the Brewers 10-7. In San Diego, the Padres hosting the Rangers. Fernando Tatis Jr. had 2 hits, including an opposite field blast.
Oh, and 2 to Tatis. And that's it in the air to deep right center field. Garcia's back, looks up, gonna go! Home run, Fernando Tatis Jr. with authority the other way. Just a missile that kept on going. That's his 18th home run of the year.
97.3 The Fan on the call as the Padres slam the Rangers 7-1. This is ABC Sports.
Hey, this is Gary Sullivan from At Home with Gary Sullivan, and this is the time of year to paint it, patch it, seal it, and clean it. Yep, I'm talking about your home, and I can help. Yeah, even your plumbing problems. So join me at home with me, Gary Sullivan, this weekend as we take your calls about your home and give you some great advice. I look forward to talking to you then, and give us a call.
Saturday nights at 7 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM at 610 AM.
This Tuesday, April Davis will change the world. She doesn't know that yet. All she knows is that she went to justserve.org and volunteered an hour of her time. Browsing through dozens of service opportunities in her community, April decided to spend her Tuesday evening serving dinner to mothers and their children at a transitional house. She doesn't know she'll be serving a particular mother and daughter who will be spending their first night in this home. April doesn't know that the hot meal she'll serve is the first this mother and daughter will have had in a week, or that the simple smile she'll offer as she serves them will help them realize that things are going to be all right. Which is why this Tuesday, April Davis will change the world. See the difference you can make. Sign up for service opportunities in your community. Visit justserve.org. JustServe.org is provided as a service by The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
It's the Garden Guide on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Welcome back to the Garden Guide on this Saturday morning. Right now, 66 degrees outside the KVNU studios, heading towards the high 90s today. But as Mark was mentioning, we have the possibility of being even in the 70s for a high by next week, depending upon where you're at. Of course, some areas are going to enjoy the 70s. The rest of us will be in the 80s.
Low 80s, and in August, that's like heaven.
Perfect conditions.
It doesn't get any better. Yeah.
Earlier, we were talking to Todd about plants and putting plants in this time of year. A lot of people say, well, it's so hot. Plants are just going to shrivel up and die. Yeah. But with the ground temperatures, like we were saying, the soil temperatures are just phenomenal.
They're perfect for the plants going.
So there are a few tips that can really help your plants to take off.
Absolutely. So as we mentioned at the top of the hour, we just received a huge shipment of fruit trees. So we got about 400 fruit trees in, and there's a little bit of everything: peaches, nectarines, apricots, plums, cherries. And we also have apples and pears and some pluots, and the trees are gorgeous. So they're in 7-gallon pots. They are fully leafed out, and a lot of growth on those. They're 6 to 7 feet tall. Some are even a little bit bigger, and some of the peaches even have great big peaches on them. So the trees look amazing. Great time to do some planting, even when it's hot like this. I've planted in the middle of July when it's 100 degrees outside, and have been very, very successful over the years. And you just got to follow our process, like just visit with Todd, kind of walked him through that process. That's exactly the way we do it. We have a planting guide at Anderson's that will walk you step by step through it with photos, and shows you exactly how to dig your hole, how big to do it, and what to amend the soil with, how to plant it, how to take it out of the pot. It's got all that information in there. And we do offer a 5-year guarantee at Anderson's. So if you buy a hardy tree or shrub for our area and you plant it following our instructions with a couple products, with either the Frutalome root stimulator or with our Kangaroots root stimulator, and a product called Mike, you can get our 5-year guarantee. And we've had some people taking advantage of that this year. We had a lot of damage through the wintertime, and we've helped to replace a lot of trees for those people who invested in our 5-year guarantee. So it really does make a difference. Those products make your plants more healthy. They make them get established faster. They encourage a lot more root development and a much healthier, larger root system. And so your plants are much less likely to have problems throughout the winter time. And even if you have other issues going on with them, makes them much more resilient. So we do have a 5-year guarantee on our trees if you follow our instructions to plant them properly with the right products. And works on fruit trees, works on shade trees, shrubs, evergreens, and it just makes those plants a lot more resilient. So big difference on getting those planted.
The one biggest mistake, and I did it years ago. My wife and I, we planted 2 apple trees.
Yeah.
This was 15 years ago when we first moved into Logan, and dropped the apple trees in and just thought, no, we're done. Walk away. And for years, those trees didn't do anything. And it got to the point where we were like, you know what? We obviously bought the wrong trees. We're just going to pull them out. And I remember a friend of mine said, did you fertilize them? Have you used any fertilizer? And we're like, no.
What is that?
We water them every once in a while. And as soon as we started applying some fertilizer on a regular basis, they took off.
Yeah.
And have been productive ever since. So, yeah, it's really a point of not just planting it in the ground and then walking away from it, but consistently caring for that plant with good fertilizer. It really makes a difference.
It does make a difference. And so with our fruit trees, we do a season-long fertilizer first thing in the spring. It just ends up feeding them all summer long, and you get lots of nice growth. So I've got a peach tree, actually 2 peach trees, a nectarine, and an apricot that were planted all within the last 2 years, and they are all in the 8-foot range now. I mean, they're just really growing like crazy. Unfortunately, they didn't have any fruit on them this year,
which was Mother Nature's
a gift to us this year.
Yeah.
But they are flourishing and doing really, really well. But we don't overwater, and so we always check that water to make sure that they're getting the right amount, not too much, not too little. And the symptoms of not enough water look very similar to the symptoms of having too much water.
Overwater.
Yeah, and so it's kind of hard to gauge that unless you physically get out there and check the soil and see how moist it is. And it's not just the surface; it's down 3 or 4 inches is where you want to check. If it's moist down 3 or 4 inches, your trees have plenty of moisture for another few days, and sometimes even a little bit longer. If you have a mulch down, like we mentioned with Todd, it really, really does make a big difference. If you've got a nice decorative mulch around your plants, you'll have fewer weeds. You don't have to water as much. The soil retains the moisture, and it looks nice. Yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah,
it keeps them looking good.
We put a mulch in a flower bed about 4 years ago, and best decision we ever made.
Yeah.
We put down a weed barrier.
Right.
Then put the mulch down on top of it.
Yeah.
Ran some drip hoses to some little lilacs that we had planted. And, it just takes care of itself.
They do great. I have a little row of boxwoods behind my house, and it's kind of back where all the mechanical stuff is, so like the air conditioners right there, and we've got hookups for the sprinklers, and they're in a spot where the sprinklers don't hit them. There's no sprinklers back there, but we put a decorative mulch of bark in there, and we basically never water them.
Never have to worry about it.
And they just do amazing. Yeah, because the decorative mulch helps hold the moisture there. So between the rainstorms and all the moisture in the spring, the soil just retains that moisture, and those boxwoods just flourish back there. It is really shady, so they don't get hit with the sun very often. It's in a really well protected spot. But between the natural moisture that they get and the bark mulch that's down, they just flourish. They do great. Except they kind of got beat up with the snow a little bit this year. Had to do a little trimming.
Everything did
Had to do a little
bit.
trimming on it. So phone lines are open, 753-5868, 753-KVNU, if you'd like to join us here on the Garden Guide. So
now, you mentioned you've got a big selection of fruit trees that came in.
Yes.
And if people are looking for, say, for example, a peach tree, I know that's one actually that we are, because we think we probably lost our peach tree in the winter. Different varieties. What do you have a favorite? Do you have one that you think would be ideal?
I do have a favorite, and unfortunately, with this shipment of trees, there were about 430 trees. And as they were loading our truck, they ran out of space. And so there were 50 that got left off of our order that we're anticipating are going to show up here very quickly. But they didn't come with the rest of the trees. And my very favorite peach is in there, in that last 50. And it's called Harkin. And Harkin is a variety that was developed in Canada. It is extra, extra hardy for cold temperatures. And so in even areas of the valley that you have struggled to plant peaches before, this one may do very, very well. It's about, like I said, 10 degrees hardier than other peaches, but it's also one of the sweetest peaches you've ever eaten. And so in all the blind taste tests that I've ever seen, and a couple of our growers do blind taste tests in their orchards just to have people come in and try stuff and see what they like, it's always in the top 3.
Oh, okay.
Like the top 3 for flavor and for sweetness. So
great.
Yeah, and it's called Harkin. Some of the other varieties I've got in stock right now, I've got some Reliance, which are also very hardy, some Contender that are very hardy. There's some early Alberta, there's some late Alberta, there's some Red Haven. We've got some really great, really, really great varieties of peaches, and I think we've got about 4 kinds of apricots and 4 or 5 kinds of cherries that came in as well too. So our fruit tree selection is outstanding right now. I don't know how else to put it.
Now, when it comes to, say, your cherries and your apricots, do they also have varying degrees of resiliency to temperatures?
More damage this year on the cherry trees than I anticipated, but there are apricots that are much, much hardier. So like your Canadian Blenheim, the Chinese apricot, and then I've got 2 varieties that are relatively new that are extra hardy too. One's called Harcot and the other is called Montrose. And they're very, very nice quality fruits, really resilient, a little hardier. And we also have some really hardy nectarines. Arctic J, that's my favorite, hands down. It's a white nectarine, but it is the most amazing fruit you've ever tasted.
Really good.
It's so good, yeah. If you like peaches or nectarines, you've got to try an Arctic J. It's just unreal.
All right.
It's so good, yeah.
Well, let's go back out to the phone lines. We have Lyle joining us on the line from Clifton. Lyle, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How are you, Lyle?
Hey, Mark, I called in a couple of weeks ago and asked about treating verticillium in potatoes and powdery mildew, and you told me to get complete disease control and ammonium sulfate.
Yes.
So I have a question on the application of them.
Okay.
The ammonium sulfate, the bag says, do not touch the plant with it. So I wondered, how do you get that into the soil without touching like these large potato vines?
That is a great question, because the ammonium sulfate is very water soluble. And so if it hits on the plant and it sticks and then it releases all the nitrogen, it will burn your plant. And so that is a great observation. I try and apply in the late afternoon, early evening when all the plants are dry. And you can broadcast it down the rows with your hand or with a broadcaster. But then if you water afterwards, especially like an overhead watering, you can wash that fertilizer off the plant into the soil. And so that's usually the best way to do that, so that you don't have it sticking to the plant. The key is to just make sure it doesn't stick to the plant. So if the plants are really dry, the granules will just kind of bounce off the leaves and end up on the ground, which is where we want it. Otherwise, you can go in there and just kind of slightly shake your plants a little bit just to get that fertilizer off, and then water afterwards. So
okay, so that's the key, is watering afterwards.
Watering afterwards. Like I'm going to do my corn this week. It needs another dose of fertilizer. It's already like 16 inches tall, so it's ready for another shot of nitrogen. And I'll do the same thing. I will broadcast my nitrogen down the rows of the corn, and then I will water afterwards to make sure it dissolves and gets down into the soil. But that ammonium sulfate is highly water soluble, so it will dissolve very quickly. So if the plants are wet, it dissolves and starts to burn your plants.
Okay, now, do you do the same thing with the complete disease control, try to water right after?
The complete disease control is like for verticillium, which is picked up by the plants through the root system. That's one you want to mix up in water and then water your plants with it. So I have been treating my tomato plants all summer long, and I don't have a single plant that's showing any signs of verticillium or early or late blight this year. Last year, the diseases were pretty bad, and so I hit them. I've been very consistent hitting them this year, and they look awesome. They just have blossom end rot.
So should you water right after you put this on, or just let that soak through the leaves?
Just let it soak through. So I mix it up in a watering can, and then I water my plants with it. I get it on the leaves as well, too, because it'll work on powdery mildew and other foliar diseases as well. But you want to really get it down into the soil so it can fight those diseases off through the soil.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate your help.
You are so welcome, Lyle. Good luck with your potatoes.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
All right.
Phone lines open. 10 minutes left. We have plenty of time to take another couple calls. 753-5868, 1-800-369-5868. We didn't really mention at the bottom of the hour as we were coming back from our news break that right now the cash and carry sale going on right now.
Yes. So not only do we have an amazing selection of fruit trees, we have some great shade and flowering trees, evergreens, beautiful shrubs, vines, and they're all on sale for 15% off. But if you pay with cash, with the green stuff, the old-fashioned version of money, you can get extra 10% off that 15, so it accumulates to a 25% discount.
25% discount
25%
on those
off
trees.
if you pay with cash, and that includes the brand new fruit trees that came in too. So it's our way of kind of sharing what we have left at the end of the season with our customers with a great price. And we're just kind of getting to that point in the summer where we want to see those plants planted instead of sitting out there in our parking lot. So this is our incentive for you to come in and spend some time outside planting in your yard. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll talk more about that coming up later on. Nate is joining us on the line from Nibley. Nate, welcome to the show.
Hey, I appreciate it. I tuned in just a little bit earlier, but I had to step away. But you were talking about the blossom end rot.
Yes.
Is there any chance that pumpkins are affected by that?
All your squashes. So zucchinis especially, because they grow so fast. You will see it in zucchinis and crooknecks, but it can get into pumpkins and winter squash as well too. So it's not a bad idea to supplement those with a little bit of calcium, especially this year where we had so much rain in March and April, like so much moisture. I guess we didn't have rain in March and April. We had snow in March and April. But in June, it was a really wet June as well too, and it leaches some of those available micronutrients out of the soil, and that includes calcium and iron. We're seeing real iron deficiencies this year. And then with the weather turning really, really hot, it makes it hard for the plants to move those nutrients through the plants, and the furthest distance they have to go is from the root system all the way out to the end of the fruit, which is where the blossom was. And so a liquid form of calcium will take care of that. Calcium chloride, which is in the Fertilome yield booster, or the CalMag from Fox Farm, those are going to be great options for you to fix that.
Perfect. And one other, I was listening at, remind me, so the raspberries.
Yeah.
You said I missed what the fertilizer was.
Yes.
Our summer berries struck out as well, so we're looking for that fall crop. What would we apply right now?
So I like to fertilize my raspberries every time I prune them. So I will prune first thing in the spring. When I'm done pruning, I'll fertilize them. And then usually in the summer, when your summer berries are done, and your everbearing have kind of produced their summer crop, we'll prune out the old canes so that the new ones can replace them, and then I will fertilize them again. And you want to use something with nitrogen in it, some sulfur, and some iron. And so I will use a product called Iron Plus, which has the iron, sulfur, and nitrogen combination already in it. But if you have ammonium sulfate, that's great too. That's a 21% nitrogen with a 24% sulfur in it. That's awesome. And then I just supplement with a chelated iron product as well too. But great time to fertilize your raspberries to encourage some nice fall production.
Perfect. Thanks so much for your time today.
You are welcome. Thanks for calling, Nate. I appreciate you listening to the show.
You bet. Bye-bye.
All right.
Phone lines open, 753-5868, with still 6 minutes left in the show.
Yeah.
Or you can call from outside the area, 1-800-369-5868.
And Lyle asked about the complete disease control, which is a biofungicide. So this is a natural bacteria, but it's a good bacteria instead of a bad bacteria, and it controls all kinds of diseases on the plants. So it works on leaf spots, it works on rust, it works on mildews. Yeah, so powdery and downy mildew. It's safe to use right up to the minute you're going to harvest your plant, so it is non-toxic to people. And so we have two options of that product. The fungicide 5 from Fertilome, and we also have the complete disease control from Monterey. And I've been using this for probably 6 or 7 years, this product, and it's my go-to disease control in the vegetable garden. Yeah. So powdery mildew is going to start showing up on cucumbers and melons and squashes and pumpkins. I saw 3 samples yesterday. So we're getting a higher humidity. We've got hot days. We've got cool nights, and it's a perfect conditions for the mildews to take off. It does not take very long for the mildews to kill your plants. And so you just really want to prevent it from showing up. So yesterday I saw leaves of maples, leaves of squashes, and some phlox, some like garden phlox that were just covered with mildew already. And so this is a time to prevent that from happening if you don't want your squashes, melons, cucumbers to croak in the next 3 weeks.
And when you talk about that mildew look, it's that chalky.
It looks like somebody sprayed flour.
Just some chalk flour.
Yeah, flour on your plants. It's like somebody went out there and sprayed flour on your plants. And it will start in one little spot, and you'll go out there the next week, and it's like everywhere. And then your plants start to yellow, and they start to die, and then your production is limited. And so I'm going to do my calcium application tonight so I can get my blossom end rot under control. The fruit that have been damaged already are already damaged. We're trying to prevent the new ones that are really starting to ripen from being affected by that as well too. But I'm going to put my biofungicide, my fungicide 5, right in with it. And as I spray my tomatoes and as I spray my squashes, melons, and cucumbers and peppers as well too, it will control disease and the blossom end rot. Yeah, the blossom end rot at the same time. So that's gonna take care of both. And this is the time that we start to see bacterial speck and black spot on the tomatoes as well too. So kind of watch for that. And if you're treating your plants for mildew, just go ahead and treat your tomatoes at the same time, because if we get that moisture next week that we're going to see, the humidity will be even higher and we'll be even more likely to see more diseases showing up. So this is the time to prevent those before the weather really comes in, and then do it again afterwards.
Do it again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can prevent that before it happens. And if you get to the end of August and you don't have any disease at that point, I just stop, because by the time it starts to show up, it's already over.
Yeah, we're already into the frost season.
We're into September, and it's like too late. So at that point, so now's the time to prevent. Otherwise, in September, you're going to be trying to fix, and it's going to be too late to fix it once we get into September. So much, much, much better to prevent those diseases before they even happen, because once you really get infected in your plants, you can't fix it by the time the season's over.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, just the last 2 minutes we have. Remind everyone, if they are just joining us.
There's only 2 minutes left.
It went by fast. Appreciate all of the calls that we've had on the show. And in the last couple of minutes, we want to just remind everyone the big fruit tree shipment that has come in.
Yes.
So if you're thinking that, you know what, maybe that tree just didn't make it through winter and it's not going to make it through the summer, it may be a good time to just pull it out now.
So I have some of my very favorite varieties of fruits that showed up in the shipment. 400 fruit trees, all for late summer, early fall planting. They look absolutely amazing. There's some that have peaches that are almost baseball size on them. And I mean, the trees look awesome.
Great.
But we were mentioning some of my favorite varieties. So there's a white apricot that is called a Blenheim that we have. It's a Canadian Blenheim. It's a white apricot, which is amazing. You got to try it. The Arctic J nectarine, which is a white nectarine, which is hands down my favorite fruit of all time. It has the right combination of tart and sweet. It's just It's unbelievable. It's so good. Yeah, and then on the peaches, the Harkin, which haven't shown up yet, but they'll be here hopefully this week. And, there's a bunch of other really great ones. Fuji apples. I think we've got some Golden Delicious that came into, not Golden Delicious, Jonagold. I love the Jonagolds. Yeah, the Jonagolds are amazing. And we got some more Bartlett pears in. Just a lot of really great varieties of fruits that have arrived. And cash sales going on. 15% off if you pay with a credit card or a debit card or a check, but an extra 10% off if you pay with cash, so you can get a 25% discount on any of our remaining trees, shrubs, evergreens, flowers, roses, shrubs.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't get any better.
All right, so join us next week for the Garden Guide here on KVNU.